I'm going to show how to do this electric effect with Affinity Photo's procedural texture filter. So I created this electric effect. It has looks sort of like electrical discharges or lightning. I can control the smoothness with this, so I can have it nice and smooth, or go up into just pure noise. I can change this level function, which shows more of the background texture. I sort of like this one about here, and then I have this time variable where I can sort of have it look like sort of zaps going across the screen here. So I'm going to go over how I came up with this and describe how it works. I originally came up with this when I was trying to do something else, and then I noticed, oh, that looks like sort of electrical discharges, and I'd been trying to do sort of an electric effect a while ago, and I didn't come up with anything good. And so when I saw this one, I thought, oh, there it is, my electric effect. So I'm going to start by deleting this, and then I will do a new one. So I'm going to turn off the gradient map for now and add procedural texture live filter. Start with an equation, assign it to all three channels, and then start with a variable v equals vec2 of rx and ry. So I'll use the relative x and y so I can move it around if I want to, and then times a divided by w. This will scale the coordinate system to the width of the page, w, and then multiply it by a control factor for a. So I'll call that scale, and I'll just set a up to 3 for now. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a noise function, and I'm going to use Perlin noise, which is perlinhcubic, and then that takes 3 parameters, v, o, and s. So the first one are the coordinates for it. The second one is a number of octaves, and those can range, I guess, as much as you want it to, but typically up to around 6 or 8. Maybe as high as 11. So I'll just set it up to be 7 right now. And then the last one is the smoothness, which I'll use the variable s for that. And so you can see as I bring this octave up, it continues to add more and more detail, but I won't really need that for this one. So I'll just leave it down around 7. Bring the smoothness down, looks sort of like clouds. If I zoom out with my scale factor, it looks like that. So that's the Perlin noise. It's made of several layers, starting with a low frequency noise and then adding more and more octave layers on top of it. So I just add enough octaves so it looks nice and smooth. And then in some cases, because it's having that adding and subtracting effect, in some cases it goes above 1, and then it also goes below 0. So for Perlin, I'm going to actually make this use the harmonic version of this. So putting an H in here will create a harmonic version. And so now I deliberately made it go from -1 to 1. Again, in some places it'll go above 1 or below -1. But I'm going to use that one. And there's a few different ways you can sort of reel this in again. I could use the absolute value of this, and if I do that, I get these nice dark ridges here, and that's almost what I want. I could do a 1 minus on that and I'd have some ridges, but instead of that, I decided to do another way to do that is to use the oscillator function. The oscillator will produce values between 0 and 1 depending on what's input to it, and these can range as far as you want. So I'm going to do that, and that starts to give me the effect that I like. I have these light ridges going along here, and the other thing I tried was I wanted to make those ridges sharper. And so I went, and if I look at the different functions, the one with the sharpest edges on it is the osccr function, osccr. So that has these nice exponential points on there and very sharp ridges. So I thought, okay, I want to try that one and see what that looks like. So osccr, and that looks like that. And as soon as I saw that, I started thinking, oh, there's my electrical discharge effect that I want to try. And I see this in video games where they're producing some magical effect or electricity. It seems like they use something very similar to this in some computer games. All right, so I have that, but what I was looking for was I wanted these to cross over each other. So I wanted these things to be intersecting. So I could just make another copy of this and add them together. So now I have two copies. That's not what I wanted. And you can see it's very bright. So when these cross over, they will go from 0 up to 2. So I'm sort of going too high. So I want to scale that back down again. So I'm just going to take this whole thing and divide by 2. Now I don't want them to be lined up on top of each other like that, so I'm going to add an offset to the coordinates. So I'm going to start just with a small offset, like 0.1, so you can see what it looks like. You can see it produce that little shift in there. I want to shift it more than that. I could put in 1, but I think you could still probably see the repeating pattern in here. And so I'm going to shift it by A. That should shift it all the way. And so I can no longer see my repeating structures in the image. Now that looks pretty good, but I want to get rid of all this background stuff. And one way to do that is to use the max function. And max is an interesting function because I can add another variable to it. I'm going to call it L. And it will look at these two, at all the different inputs and select the largest of those. Okay, so let's see what happens when I do that. So I'm going to create one called L. I'm going to call that the level. And right now it's set to 1, so it's all white. As I bring this down, different parts of the other function, this noise function, will start coming through that level. Okay, so I'll see more and more of the noise as I bring this down because it's taking the maximum of whatever these two. When this is at 0, the noise it'll be all that noise function. That'll be the maximum. But as I bring this up, and this level becomes the maximum. So that sort of does what I want, but the problem with it is it makes it mostly white or light gray, and as I get closer to the top, it's like almost completely white. And I'd like to have more contrast on there. I could sort of figure out a way to multiply a contrast value by that, but instead I'm going to use the mapcui function. So mapcui will map the values to a closed unit interval. And the interval I'm going to use is I'm going to go from L up to 1. So the value of L will be taken as a 0 value, and then it'll scale the rest of this between 0, or whatever L is, as 0, and then 1. So it's going to rescale this whole thing like that. So now my blacks are nice and dark, no matter what my level is. So if I turn it all the way down, or then I can gradually bring this up. So now I'm starting to see my noise. I can see my little electrical discharge. So I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit like that so I can see them. And that looks pretty good, and I'm going to turn on my gradient now. And so my gradient, I'll just show you the values. So I just have black here. I have sort of a purpley blue color there with those values. This one has sort of a lavender, and then it goes up to white. So just 3 values in that gradient. And you could change and make it more of a green, blue-green or some other value if you like. Okay, so that looks good. I'm going to zoom in and drag this in. But one thing I'd like to do is to have this change, and so I'm going to add one more variable here. I'm going to call it t for time, so I can have it change over time. And what I'm going to assign this to is these oscillators. So these oscillators, I want them to, I'm going to add a phase offset to them. So, and that's plus t. So right after my noise parentheses, I'm going to add plus t to this, to each of these. Now, when I do this, ooh, my noise will sort of fade in and out like electricity crackling over the area. Okay, so that's the effect I want. Now if I turn down my level all the way, you can sort of see what it's doing. Since this osccr function produces a sharp ridge, the position of that ridge will change as I change my phase. So as I sweep through the phases, the position of those ridges is just showing up at different places in the underlying noise function. Okay. And then when I reduce the amount of the noise that's coming through with my maximum function, then I can see it looks like this. So that's the effect I'm looking for. All right, that's the whole effect. Let me know if you have any comments or questions, and thanks for watching.